Me as a coach, I'm here to do one thing. I'm going to help the player succeed and do what he wants to do. This year, there's like 1,900 players going to be in this draft. I want guys that love football and like to practice and like being around one another. It's a wide open offense. It's 4 receivers, a back that can run and catch. Quarterback's going to get it out of his hand fast. We're going to try to take advantage of what people do best and to put them in spots to, be successful.
Go Dragons.
And you got to work hard and have fun doing it and interact with everybody as a group, and that's what wins championships. I just know I'll be on the side where the crowd's loud instead of going against it. This will be fun. It's a good group of guys. We'll put a good team out there and hopefully have a chance to win it all.
Battlehawk fans, Viva Las Vegas, I have arrived. I have touched ground, getting ready to build a winner this week. It's going to be exciting. Stay tuned. Drop a lot of videos this week. Keep you guys in the loop. But don't forget, we're here to build a championship team. Caw.
Coaching now in the XFL, I love the opportunity for these young players that are on the outskirts of the NFL, that they still have a platform to show that they can play, show their talent, show their ability, and to keep their dreams alive and keep them moving forward. I think it's pretty special.
Look what we got in the mail from the XFL. Let's take a look at this little unboxing deal here. All right, what did we get here? Well, first, I got the football from Logo Brands. Here's the DC Defenders football. So I got that, and that looks pretty cool. It's all ready to go. Mini size football, Logo Brands. I like that. That's pretty cool. It's like squishy kind of. I always wondered if this is going to be the football that they use in the league. That would be kind of cool if each team had its own colored football, but this seems more just like a fun kids thing to have kind of deal. All right, let's see what else we got here. We got a t-shirt. This one is a woman's t-shirt for my wife, because you got to get the wife involved. And I got a t-shirt for the DC Defenders. And here is the shirt that came in the mail. So it's got the new DC. You notice the D and the C. Get it? Defenders logo versus the old one, which I have. Here's one that I have right here. That's the old kind of logo. And here's the new one. And then also what I found was kind of unique is that it's got the little XFL at the bottom of the t-shirt. So we got my shirt, we got my wife's shirt over there, and then we got the cool football, which I'm really excited. I can't decide if I should take it out of the box. I probably will. Maybe I'll leave it in there for a little while. So there you have it. Little XFL merch unboxing, and as you can see, the old symbol has gone away, and now we have the new one. What is up, my friends? And welcome to another edition of the XFL Week in Review. I'm your host, Mark Perry, editor of XFL News Hub, your spring football media, alt football media guru. On this week's show, I don't know what we have to talk about this week. It's going to be oh my gosh, are you kidding me? It's the XFL draft week. We will have players by the end of the week on your XFL teams. Not only we know the team names, not only we know the logos, but now you're going to have players, quarterbacks, all that stuff. We're going to get into all that stuff. Plus, we have Mike XFL Insider, the GOAT, Mike Mitchell, and Vipers reporter Brandon Anderson dropping some bombs on you in this episode. So you're not going to want to stay. You don't want to miss that. You don't miss it. And remember, if you like football, then subscribe to this channel. It's very simple. Just hit the like button, hit that subscribe notification. Let's get this sucker to 70 likes. So hit that notification bell, and anytime some news breaks, you'll get a notification. You check us out on YouTube. So remember, if you like football, then subscribe to our channel. And this is going to be a huge week. And they were talking about, the XFL was talking about being sponsored by ZOA. We are not really sponsored by ZOA, but we will be running on ZOA all week long. Why? Because today, the show, Monday show, is taped because I got a family event. Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, we are live with a recap talking about the XFL quarterbacks that are announced, which will be tomorrow. You will have that. Wednesday, all day XFL draft coverage with a recap show at 8 p.m. Eastern, as long as I assume that A, I have a voice, and B, that they're done by 8 o'clock. Thursday, there is another day full of draft stuff. Again, 8 p.m. Eastern time, another recap show as well. We've got XFL News Hub reporters going to be jumping on the Zoom call. We've got special guests and so much more. You're not going to want to miss this. This is going to be a lot of fun. So I personally will be powered by Zoa to get through the week. My wife already knows this is going to be a crazy week. I told her, and I was like, get some Zoa so that we can get through this week. All right? But I'm going to need your help, my friends, because I want you to be part of the show. So it's simple. Email podcast@xflnewshub.com anytime during the week. We've got a bunch of social media stuff, but what I want to do is I want to save that for the live events so we can play calls and we can do all sorts of kind of stuff. So if you want to be part of all that live craziness starting tomorrow, email podcast@xflnewshub with your thoughts, or record an MP3 or video on your phone. We'll play it on the show this whole week. So send us your stuff. If you're going to do something, this is the week to do it. I need content so it could give my voice a chance to rest. 888-430-7692 extension 3. Do that. And also, while you're at it, maybe you're new to the XFL world, leave us a review. We're on Stitcher, Audible, Player FM, Amazon, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts. Just leave us a review. We appreciate that. And we are live, not today, but every week at 8 p.m. Eastern on Monday on the YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch timeline. 95 days to kick off, but XFL QB assignments are tomorrow. November 15th, 16th, and 17th is the XFL draft. Training camp begins on the 9th, and then February 18th, 2023, the season begins. Most likely a supplemental draft before that January 9th, end of December time frame as well. Crazy. We finally got here. And for all of you out there who stuck through this league, who continued to podcast, continue to talk about the league, continue to follow everything, really, this week is for you. We're going to bring in a lot of new fans. Everybody is welcome in the XFL community, whether you're an OG or not. It doesn't matter. We want you part of this community. This community has held the fort. We battled, we held the line. What's that? If a Game of Thrones thing, hold the wall, or what was it? The door thing, or whatever. Hold the door, or whatever he did. If you want Game of Thrones, message me. Leave us a comment in the comments if you know what I'm talking about. Hold the door, hold the door, or something. That's what we did. And now it is time for some XFL action. A lot of new fans will be coming in, streaming, and being part of the community. So if you're going to be part of the community, we've got an idea for you before we get into this stuff. We want you to be part of the community. See, what we started was something that I think you guys will like. Now there's a community for alt football. We've been using this term alt football since 2020, where it was kind of like the AAF, Indoor Football League, then the USFL came on board, Fan Control Football came on board, the Spring League. We always called it alt football, which basically means alternative football, alternative to the NFL. CFL is included in that. And college, it's like kind of NFL college football. So what we did was let's have a community. It's called. So you just go to Reddit and sign up and just look up alt football. You'll find us on Reddit. That's where all of the news about the CFL. We had the Grey Cup. This Grey Cup will be this weekend. You got the Winnipeg Blue Bombers against Toronto Argonauts. There was a big game between the BC Lions and Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Came down, well, it didn't really come down to the wire, but, some clock management at the end. But exciting stuff, exciting football going on there. USFL dropped a bunch of hints today. Season tickets for the Birmingham Stallions. They teased about the hub. That was dropping today. Bo Levi Mitchell might be going, was traded to the Hamilton Tiger Cats. That dropped today. Everybody's dropping this kind of alt football news. This is the community. We'll talk about this kind of stuff. We have the different news hubs, XFL, USFL, CFL news hub, but all this stuff in one place to try to bring the community together. So that's on Reddit, Alt Football. Just look it up. Also, one other thing before we get into the show. You guys, it's draft time. You're going to want to play fantasy football. Well, we got you covered. News Hub Fantasy. Just go to News Hub Fantasy right now. Leagues are forming, so get involved with that so you can play your fantasy football right now. Yeah, you can start your league, you can set up the settings, all that stuff. We're going to wait till we can get the data. And I haven't heard anything about what the XFL is doing as far as data partners, but that's also something that you could sign up. So you got the Reddit Alt Football, you got News Hub Fantasy to play fantasy football, and we've got the XFL draft coverage all week long. That's what we're doing here, trying to provide you a service, my friends, with that. All right, my friends. So without further ado, we'll do our news. We'll do our long roundtable with XFL insider Mike Mitchell and Vipers reporter Brandon Anderson. Then we'll come back and wrap up the show because we've got a lot of stuff going on this week. So I'm going to save the social media and stuff and everything for that for the live show. Without further ado, folks, let's just get into the week that is becoming the XFL. The XFL draft week to be held November 15th through the 17th in Las Vegas, and this is going to be streamed on XFL.com. The XFL put out the following press release of Zoa Energy to partner on draft activities. No shocker there. XFL Draft Week will be held November 15th through the 17th at the UFC Apex facility in Las Vegas, Nevada. XFL ownership, head coaches, and league football operations will all be in attendance for the inaugural event. League and team personnel have evaluated nearly 6,000 players at XFL showcases, NFL training camps, and tryouts. The top prospects from these evaluations have been invited to enter the XFL draft pool of 17,000 players vying for 528 spots in training camp and 400 active player roster spots. The week's activities will kick off on Tuesday, November 15th at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, with a live-streamed quarterback selection show hosted by ESPN's Stormy Buonanti. During the show, XFL head coaches will officially announce their team's quarterbacks. The show will air live on XFL.com and I assume on YouTube as well. The events in Las Vegas will continue as the league kicks off 2 days of draft action where head coaches will make position selections alongside directors of player personnel. Quote, holding our draft where so many dynamic sports stories have been written is the perfect backdrop for this important XFL milestone, said chairwoman and owner Danny Garcia. The draft is just the start of an incredible new chapter for these players. We cannot wait to welcome this inspiring new talent to the XFL, close quote. Sometimes in life, all you need is one shot to prove yourself, and the XFL provides that chance, added owner Dwayne Johnson. These players have been working hard and beating the odds. We have seen their passion at the showcases. We've seen their commitment to the game. And now we, as owners, coaches, and trainers, are in a position to take their game to the next level. I know we have some electrifying ballers in the player pool and can't wait to see them all the field balling out come training camp in January, close quote. For now, fans will be able to follow draft events with a live and interactive Draft Central board on XFL.com as well as XFLNewsHub.com, whether it's XFL News Hub or streaming live on XFL News Hub on YouTube. So make sure you like and subscribe to this channel now so you can follow all the draft action live as it's happening. XFL League and team social media platforms will also be posting behind-the-scenes coverage throughout the day, and updates will appear regularly on ESPN broadcasts throughout the 2-day period. Russ Brandon, president of the XFL, added, this is a historic moment for the XFL as we continue to build our league with our players as the core of our unique football ecosystem. Our league executives, coaches, and their staff have worked tirelessly to prepare for the draft, and I am thrilled to see these teams come together for our fans and the organization. As our kickoff approaches in February, we're excited to showcase our tremendous athletes and high-caliber coaching staff to bring a high level of play and excitement to our fans. So Energy will serve as official energy drink of the XFL draft. You know, The Rock and Danny Garcia own Zoa Energy Drink. So day one, Wednesday, November 16th, 8:30 a.m. Pacific time, 11:30 a.m. Eastern. Day one will be broken into 4 position groups with 11 rounds of selections for each group. Offensive skill positions, defensive backs, defensive front seven, and offensive line. Day 2, Thursday, November 17th, 7:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 a.m. East. Day 2 will feature specialist kickers, punter, long snapper, followed by open rounds for all available positions. Note, a supplemental draft for players currently under contract with other professional league will occur in early 2023. That is could potentially be USFL players as well as maybe some NFL players at this time, and also some Canadian football players. We'll have to find out about that. XFL Football Operations will conduct a virtual lottery to randomly determine the order of the 2023 draft. In addition to league personnel, each team will be present and represented by their director of player personnel. The order of selection for the inaugural draft will be announced November 14th at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific on XFL.com. For more information, of course, follow all of them on the social, as well as follow all of the action on XFL News Hub. So make sure you like and subscribe to this channel so that you can get all the XFL draft news. It's sure to be some very interesting names, maybe coming from the USFL, names from the past from the XFL. And we're less than 100 days, my friends, from the kickoff of the XFL season. Now we have team names, we have logos. We'll actually have players starting next week, starting on the 15th. With the first pick in the 2023-2022 XFL Draft, America's team, the DC Defenders, select Rashad Ross. Or no, what was his name? Rashard Davis, wide receiver. No, that was in 2020. But again, the DC Defenders, America's team, as it should be, also gets the first pick in the draft. So the DC Defenders will receive the first selection in the XFL Draft for the 2023 season. XFL Draft Week, presented by ZipRecruiter. This is a lot different than what it was in the past. They actually have sponsors now. Will be held on November 16th and 17th at the UFC Apex in Las Vegas, Nevada. Hopefully we get a location where their team will be playing at this point. Earlier today, XFL Football Operations conducted a virtual lottery at random, determining the order for the 2023 draft. In addition to league personnel, each team was represented by their director of player personnel. So your first round selection order is the DC Defenders, America's team. Yeah, I would laugh for fun. I don't know if he's even on a team. Maybe he was on a team, but Rashard Davis. That would be awesome if he got picked to be number 1 twice. Anyway, St. Louis Battlehawks, you're number 2. San Antonio Brahmas are number 3. Orlando Guardians are 4. Vegas Vipers 5. Seattle Sea Dragons are 6. Arlington Renegades are 7. And Houston Roughnecks are at 8. Now, the selection process will occur in a snake-style format. Teams will take turns drafting players, with the pick order reversing each round. The DC Defenders will have the first pick in the offensive skills position draft and will select again at 16th in the following round. You guys know all this stuff. The grid summarizes the picks orders for each of the 6 phases. So you got the phase 1, the skills. DC will start. DBs, or Orlando will start. The rest of the defense, Vegas will start. Offensive line phase, Houston. Now that's kind of a one that you kind of want. Specialist phase will be Arlington, and then the open phase, Seattle will get the pick if you want to. That's how the draft is kind of going to be set up there. So day 1, Wednesday, November 16th, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 11:30 a.m. Eastern. Day 1 will be broken into 4 positional groupings with 11 rounds of selections for each grouping. The order of the other positional grouping is based on the lottery of the offensive skills positions. For example, Houston will select first in the offensive line grouping. DC will select last. So you got offensive line, defensive back, defensive front 7, and offensive line. Day 2 will be Thursday the 17th at 7:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 a.m. Eastern. Again, early in the day. Day 2 will feature 3 rounds of specialists. You get the kicker, punter, long snapper, followed by 11 rounds of open drafting. So this is what anything can go. A supplemental draft will be held in early 2023, most likely before training camp, for players currently under contract with other sports leagues. That means the USFL, not Canadian Football League, unless they're asked for their release, but that's NFL and USFL players. Remember, CFL players aren't released until a week after the XFL season is underway. Undrafted players from the November draft will remain in the supplemental draft pool and may be added to a team roster at a later date. But this week's activities kick off Tuesday, November 15th at 2 p.m. with the live stream quarterback selection show hosted by VSIN and ESPN talent Stormy Buonantoni. During the show, XFL head coaches will officially announce their team's quarterback. The show will air live at XFL.com. On Tuesday at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern, ESPN2 will be airing a 30-minute behind-the-scenes special Drive to the XFL Draft. The XFL produced, not NFL Films, XFL produced Can't Miss Film offers viewers unprecedented access behind the curtain as the league chairwoman and owner Danny Garcia and league owner Dwayne Johnson work towards building their vision for the XFL to life. More information, of course, February 18th is the kickoff. So there you have it. There is the selection order. Your first pick in the 2022 XFL Draft. The DC Defenders take? We'll find out on Wednesday. ESPN will bring the draft week coverage begins with the Drive to XFL Draft on ESPN2. So this cross-platform XFL Draft week coverage begins with the exclusive airing of a behind-the-scenes special called Drive to the XFL Draft. So on November 15th, the XFL produced special offers unprecedented look at Danny Garcia and Dwayne Johnson putting their league vision in motion. So on Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern on ESPN2, we'll air a 30-minute behind-the-scenes special Drive to the XFL Draft. After its initial airing, the special will also be available on demand on ESPN+. The XFL-produced Can't Miss Film offers viewers unprecedented access behind the curtain as league chairwoman and owner Danny Garcia and league owner Dwayne Johnson work towards bringing their vision for the XFL to life. With a shared passion for football and a rare opportunity to provide players with the tools to achieve their dreams, the film chronicles Garcia and Johnson's travels to the XFL showcases across the country, where they connect with players, hear their stories, and make important decisions about XFL operations. Gee, you think they're going to mention anything about XFL News Hub during this kind of stuff? Garcia and Johnson have a long track record of success business ventures and the media and entertainment industry, and they will bring their unmatched experience and competitive drive to build the XFL into a successful league and expand the football ecosystem. Viewers will see this firsthand as Garcia, the first woman to own an equal or majority ownership stake in a major professional U.S. sports league, and Johnson, we all know who he is, worked to craft a culture putting the XFL at the intersection of dreams and opportunity. Then November 16th and 17th, ESPN's expansive digital XFL Draft coverage. So beginning on the 16th, the XFL Draft will get underway from UFC Apex facility at Las Vegas, Nevada. Fans will be able to follow draft events with a live and interactive draft central board on XFL.com. Full details on the entire 2023 XFL Draft are on XFL News Hub. In addition to bringing fans behind the scenes the prior night with the Drive to XFL Draft special, the network will also provide fans wide-ranging options across its digital platforms to follow the selection of the league's first draft class and the next generation of stars ahead of the 2023 kickoff. Quote, the XFL Draft Week coverage and accompanying XFL Draft special, Drive to the XFL Draft, are only the beginning of what will be an incredibly exciting and highly anticipated upcoming season for fans, said Tim Reed, ESPN Vice President of Programming and Acquisitions. We are excited to work with the XFL to bring fans exclusive access inside the action all season long, both on and off the field, in as many innovative and engaging ways as possible. Also, quote, ESPN and the Walt Disney Company continue to be tremendous partners to the XFL, and we are grateful for their collaboration as we welcome and celebrate the next group of XFL players entering the league during the XFL our draft this week, said Russ Brandon, president of the XFL. We are excited with what's still to come, and we're looking forward to sharing the stories of our owners, head coaches, and players with our passionate fans. Also, Drive to the XFL Draft provides a fascinating look at the passion and excitement Danny Garcia and Dwayne Johnson have for fulfilling their vision for the XFL, which is to create opportunities for today's players, says Jay Rothman. He used to work for ESPN, XFL Senior Vice President of Broadcast Operations. This is a tremendous preview of the synergies and access to their platforms that our broadcast partners with ESPN offers. So here's what's going to go down. SportsCenter will have updates and interviews from Las Vegas throughout Tuesday and Wednesday with reports from Stormy Buonantoni, who will also host the league's live streamed quarterback selection show. And then we'll finally get to know how to pronounce her last name. Sorry about that, Stormy. ESPN Social will be sharing all the breaking news live across its platforms throughout the entire week of the XFL Draft, including the first 16 picks announced by Garcia and Johnson. ESPN will also bring fans inside the event with insider, behind-the-scenes content from on-site. Cool. ESPN.com will have a full lineup of stories from its rosters of football experts providing in-depth insight on the 2023 class. Topics include everything to know about the XFL and its draft, a breakdown of the league's quarterbacks, stories with prospective players and league executives, and more. So announced, we've talked about, ESPN and Disney and all that other stuff. So there you have it. Check out the show called Drive to XFL Draft. It's on ESPN. Set your thing to record or watch it live. It's 10 p.m. Eastern. Figure out all the other stuff. On ESPN2, 30-minute behind the scenes. Tuesday and Wednesday are usually a dead slow day when it comes to sports at 10 p.m. So you should be able to get a chance. This will hit everybody. Really interested to see this. This is something that didn't happen in the 2.0 era, that this new kind of thing is happening with the XFL. And if some people are critiquing that Garcia and Dwayne Johnson, why is it about them? Because those are the people are going to want to see. We don't know the players. We don't know the stories. We don't even know if they're going to make the teams yet. So we'll start with them, and then we'll build towards the players. It totally makes sense. And this is the thing that Mike Mitchell has talked about, XFL Insider, about what Dwayne Johnson and Danny Garcia are going to bring to the league, which is this kind of 365 behind the scenes content created from this league. It should be an interesting week, my friends. More potential QBs part of the QB assignments happening on Tuesday. So ESPN's Kevin Seifert posted a lengthy article today detailing the XFL draft and QB selections. Like our XFL insider Mike Mitchell did in September, Seifert added some new names to the potential list of quarterbacks. Quote, its initial quarterback pool includes only one player, Ben DiNucci, who has appeared in an NFL game. The pool is likely to expand after the NFL season when quarterbacks on practice squads become available, but name recognition and proving records are not top priorities. A supplemental draft will take place in January, close quote. He also said XFL Senior Vice President Doug Whaley told Seifert that most QBs are 4 or 5 years out of college. We also learned a little more about Tuesday's QB assignment event. He said, quote, the XFL will assign the current 13-member quarterback pool to its 8 teams on Tuesday during a live stream event at 2 p.m. Eastern from Las Vegas. So here is the math, my friends. There are 8 teams. Each team will have at least 2 quarterbacks. That means 3 of those slots might be filled by former USFL players or players on NFL practice squads. They're only picking 13. Do the math. Now, here are some of the names Seifert listed that could be assigned on Tuesday. He's got Quinton Dormandy, Eric Dungy, fans are excited about that name. Caleb Elby, DeAndre Francois, Eric King, Jalen McClendon, Stephen Montez, Juwan Pass, Drew Plitt, Anthony Russo, Brendan Silvers, and Ryan Willis. So we've got DiNucci, Dormandy, Dungy, and Elby, and Russo are some new names based on Mike Mitchell's reporting in September. He also said some notable NFL names could be part of this year's XFL draft. He said, quote, there are a handful of notable NFL veterans in the pool, including wide receivers Martavis Bryant and Mohamed Sanu. It's not yet clear if either will be drafted. So now here's a caveat to all of this. Don't expect to see any former USFL players yet as part of the XFL draft. In last week's ITL Zoom call, Whaley noted that those players' contracts don't expire until December 31st. In January, I expect to see some of those names called in the XFL supplemental draft. The situation is fluid right now. Will former USFL players jump ship or stay? This will be the question heading into January. But remember, there are 3 spots open at this current junction of this recording of this 13 members. 8 plus 8 is 16. So there's 3 spots. Somebody not named on this list who is currently under contracts but did work out with Jordan Palmer is Brian Scott. Add him to the list. Could there be other USFL quarterbacks or some practice squad guys to come when it comes to this? We will find out. So this draft is going to be exciting, but really this January one is going to be really exciting as well, the supplemental draft. Our man Anthony Miller got to be part of the Inside the League. They hosted an event this past week with Senior Vice President of Player Personnel Doug Whaley and Senior Director of Player Administration and Officiating Operations Russ Giglio last Thursday night, discussing multiple topics. Most of the topics that were discussed around the XFL draft scheduled to occur between the 15th and 17th. Other questions that were addressed, including player contracts, players after the draft and training camp. He's got a whole breakdown. So, of course, the XFL draft will occur in Las Vegas at the UFC. It all begins on Tuesday with the quarterback selection show, where the coaches will make the announcements. On the 16th, the draft days will begin with offensive skilled players, defensive backs, defensive front seven, offensive linemen being picked. There will be 11 picks per grouping and about 60 players selected. So keep that in mind. The first round will be 5 minutes, and each round afterward decreases the time teams have to select their player of choice. ESPN, of course, will have cut-ins throughout the day where draft picks will be announced by owners Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and Danny Garcia. Day 2 of the draft will have the specialists and open rounds for the draft. No trades will be allowed in the draft, something that to keep in mind. Each player will receive a call or some notification from the Director of Player Personnel and head coach once they are selected. Roughly 450 players will be drafted in total, with about 1,700 players' names in the draft pool. I got all these people always asking me, oh, interview me. I'm like, just because you're in the player pool, there's tons of names in the player pool. Doesn't mean you're going to get drafted. We will have to wait and see on that. So according to Giglio, an estimated 725 players are in the pool from the 2022 NFL draft class. 115 players are from the 2021 NFL draft class, and 275 players from the 2020 NFL draft class. Players will have until December 26th to commit to the XFL after being drafted by the league. Remember, when the XFL had its draft, some of the players, and we actually interviewed one of the agents, they didn't want to play for the XFL, didn't even realize their name was part of the player pool. Their agent put them in. They said, no thanks. So that can happen as well. But then we have the supplemental draft. Will definitely fill in the blanks for that. Those who the XFL doesn't draft will be eligible for the supplemental draft that will take place in early January. That supplemental draft will include those who weren't drafted, NFL players who were just cut, and other players who are added to the draft pool, say from the USFL. Even if players aren't drafted, they could still be signed as injury replacements on rosters. The league plans on having in-season workouts with players, with Whaley tentatively planning on those occurring in Arlington, Texas, once every 2 weeks. And remember, the NFL Alumni Academy, those players will be part of the draft and on training camp teams. Training camp latest. So one comment that was made with regarding mini camps, as it was originally planned to happen in late December. Now it appears, according to Whaley, that the league might be moving away from having a mini camp. So there was talk of having some kind of mini camps in December. They might just try to wait and just till January. We'll have to see what that is. They will instead focus on the NFL Alumni Academy and those workouts for players. Any player participating in the sessions 3 and 4 of the NFL Alumni Academy will be available for the supplemental draft in January. So that's what's going on with there. Preseason is planned to begin in early January, with players arriving on January 8th. During the first week, players will be focused on getting set up, signing all necessary documents to prepare them for training camp and the season. Preseason will essentially be a jamboree event that is tentatively planned for the last week of January. During this time, teams will potentially have just one half of football to get back into the flow of a football game. Ask how the USFL and their preseason went. It took a while for those teams to get acclimated. So we'll see if the XFL has learned from the USFL or things in their past. We'll see how this works out. This time will also be used for the ESPN to practice their broadcast to prepare when games start in February. During training camps, team will also be able to start making trades. Giglio mentioned that a trade deadline will be implemented, but no word on when the deadline will be. Final rosters will be 50 players, with 45 will be active for games and 5 will be inactive for games. Teams will have the ability to sign players throughout the in-season workouts and throughout the league's partnership with Indoor Football League. Remember that. We've talked to people from the Indoor Football League. More announcements and news are expected to be released as we build up towards the XFL draft. So some more details on how the inner workings will be for the XFL draft. Anthony Miller is all part of that. We got you covered here on XFL News Hub as always. All right, we'll take a commercial break and be right back with our interview, our roundtable with Brandon Anderson and XFL insider Mike Mitchell. Stay tuned.
Fan-controlled football. You heard that right. Fan-controlled football. A real football league with real players controlled by real fans. All in real time. Register to try out at fcf.io.
All right, we're here with Mike Mitchell and Brandon Anderson. Guys, thanks for coming on the program.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me on.
Yeah.
All right, so let's first talk. We've got the XFL draft. This is kind of like the precursor to what's going to happen. And this is recorded Sunday night, so things could change at the blink of an eye. We'll start with the GOAT, the XFL insider, even though he doesn't like to be called that, Mike Mitchell. Is there any kind of rumblings you're hearing before the draft?
There's a lot going on right now. Like a lot of players and agents are talking. It's difficult because, you mentioned the insider part. Oftentimes I don't like to go public with certain things, but I can say this, there are certain USFL players that were released by NFL teams that have had talks with the XFL and that have reached out to the XFL to try to be selected in the draft or to end up on teams. And two of the names I've been hearing, and I'm not saying that they're going to be announced on Tuesday as assigned quarterbacks, but there's been some backrooms moves to try to see if they can angle themselves in. And that's Kyle Sloter, the New Orleans Breakers quarterback, and Luis Perez, the New Jersey Generals quarterback. So everybody's familiar with Luis now in this space. So those are two guys that I've been hearing rumblings about. I'm not so sure where Perez would end up, but and I can't confirm this. So I usually I'm uncomfortable sometimes with going forward with stuff like this because it may very well not happen. But I have heard about Kyle Sloter potentially with Arlington. Now, he could end up back with the Breakers. I do know that the USFL hired John D. Filippo, who's his former offensive coordinator in Minnesota. And it's possible, this is a great thing about these leagues, is that someone like Sloter can end up getting more money and being paid more by the USFL than he was last season. So that's the leverage that's here for some players in terms of making choices. I also know one of the other USFL quarterbacks everybody's familiar with is Brian Scott. We know he's been working out with Jordan Palmer. The XFL actually listed him as one of the quarterbacks that was, what did they use? Under evaluation. Scott is a lock to be in the XFL. I suppose things can change between now and then, but you won't hear his name on Tuesday. And the reason for that is he's still under contract with the USFL. Now, he can work out with Jordan Palmer. That's his own free time. He can do any quarterback that's under any league can work out with Palmer as a personal quarterback coach. But cannot sign an XFL contract or commit to the XFL if he's under contract with the USFL. And that's the key verbiage we've been hearing. I've been writing about for months and been pointing out for months is that January period, because you have a lot of potential players from the NFL whose practice squad contracts expire after the season who could join the XFL. And then, of course, you have USFL players whose contracts expire on 12/31 who can join the XFL. And that would be someone like a Brian Scott. There are others right now that I can't really get into. I can't name because of, the information I've been given off the record. But, the info that I have in terms of the XFL is they're looking for, and I'm not in any way trying to downgrade the USFL players, but I think the XFL has an interest, maybe 40 to 50 USFL players tops. And so whether or not they draft them, sign them, we'll see. Of course, USFL has a lot of great players there, but I think the XFL, we saw, Anthony Miller did a tremendous job writing an article covering the recent Zoom call held by Doug Whaley and Russillo, and they listed, which was very forthcoming. They listed the number of players in the draft pool that are from the last 3 NFL draft classes. And I think Russillo mentioned roughly 725 players are from the NFL 2022 draft class. And the XFL, as we know, for months on end, we're at all the showcase games, at all the college all-star games, at pro days during the draft, at the combine itself. So they've scouted this recent class thoroughly. And it's a lot of players who recently cut in camp, undrafted guys who got mini camp invites but didn't get signed. So I think they're going to skew a little bit more younger. And I know the USFL has a lot of good players, but a lot of those guys were guys who were out of the NFL mix. Unfortunately, for some, like guys like Darius Victor, who I think still should be in the NFL. These are players that were out of the mix for like 2 or 3 years, and they haven't had an opportunity. I think the XFL is going to skew younger. They'll have some veterans in the mix. The teams are, of course, going to be attached to some of the players, like the personnel directors, like Randy Mueller will be attached to guys he personally drafted and picked up in the AAF, or he personally drafted and signed with Houston in the XFL. So you could see a lot of XFL 2020 guys sprinkled into these teams. But I think they're going to skew more younger. And I know 725 sounds like a crazy number, but the reason for the uptick there is because of COVID. Because there was an extra year of eligibility towards players. That's why when Russillo went through the numbers, he said it's 115 from the 2021 class, and I think I have it here somewhere, 275 from the 2020 class. So the numbers are higher this year for this particular draft class that just passed. So I think they're going to skew younger. That's a lot of players. That's over 1,100 players out of what is reported to be by the league itself, a 1,700 player draft class. So that leaves 600 other guys. It's fascinating, this whole draft process. The mystery part of it is you can argue that maybe we should have more information on who's in the pool itself, but the mystery part of it makes it a little bit more fun because there may be some names that we haven't heard.
Yeah. One thing is interesting when people complain that they're like, well, why don't they release the draft pool of all the 1,700 players? Well, because they don't want the USFL to see that who they have and they're looking at. So I mean, in either side, so you're never going to get.
That's a fair point, Mark. A lot of people don't make that point. That's very fair, because the last time the XFL had this draft process 3 years ago in 2019, in the fall 2019, there was no AAF. Unfortunately, the AAF went out of business, so there was no direct competition there. So I know that, what's funny is we know a little bit, right? Because a lot of players and coaches have publicized the fact that they're in the draft pool. If you're on social media, you see that constantly. And if you keep track of it, do your homework and make a list like crazy people like me have, then you have an idea a lot of the players that are in the pool. And then we know that the AA guys, that's the NFL Alumni Academy graduates, are automatically going to be on XFL rosters in training camp. That's the 66 players per team. Mm-hmm. And then we know about the January period, which is what we were just talking about, the 1231, the practice squad guys, the fringe NFL guys that are still waiting for an NFL opportunity. So, yes, I think it would have been cool if, like back in 2019, because back in 2019, when I went to the showcase in Montclair State, legendary Sam Mills alma mater, a Hall of Famer, they gave you a full list of everybody who was at the showcases, every single player. So you had so that was cool, right? But it's a little bit different now. The competition makes it a little bit different. They're a little more secretive, even though if you've been following this closely, you kind of have an idea which players are in this group. I didn't mention even the XFL 2020 guys that are automatically in the draft pool. Doesn't mean they'll be selected, but they're in there. There's the guys I'm rooting for, Rashad Ross and the Jeff Badetts and the Cameron Artis Paynes. I'd like to see all those guys back in the league again. But Tim Cook. But we'll see. But yeah, I think the mystery part of it comes with the signed quarterbacks, and and I think there could be some interesting and unique names that a lot of people haven't thought of, which makes it the process a lot more fun. It's going to be an extended period this entire draft week that's coming up.
Any Cardell Jones? I mean, we saw pictures of him. Has there been any talk of like they want him to return, or
I think it's possible. Yeah, I think, Mark, it's a good name to bring up. I think it's possible that Cardell Jones could be back in the league. Maybe as a backup. Maybe he's paired up with King in DC, because that's where I figured Derek King's going to end up, is in DC. So that could be like, it's almost similar to what the Defenders had last time, where they had Tyree Jackson, who's kind of a dual threat hybrid type player, with Cardell, who's more of a pocket passer, although he is mobile. So I could see Cardell on one of the teams. The difference this time between the last time is that Cardell's not the, front and center as one of the assigned highlighted guys. He's going to have to fight for his supper, for lack of a better term, this go around. But why not? Maybe a situation like DC is not bad. To go there with that staff and with Reggie Barlow and Fred Keiss and everybody else. And maybe him with King would be good, because King is a very, unique Kyler Murray-esque type talent, very unconventional, very shorter quarterback, 5'8", 5'9", maybe. And so extremely fast, explosive. And maybe you want to pair him up like a dual quarterback kind of system, sort of what we saw in the USFL with the New Jersey Generals of DeAndre Johnson and Luis Perez. Maybe some of these teams decide to employ that type of deal. So I could see Cardell. I'm not saying he's going to be an assigned guy, but I think he's worthy of being a backup at the bare minimum, maybe compete. Who knows?
Well, no, just for the record, for all the researchers out there, Sonic 2 did come out. So therefore the curse is broken. So he should be good to go. All right, Brandon, you are our boots on the ground kind of Vipers guy. You got your Vipers shirt. You're all ready to go. You wrote the article talking about the different stadiums. Anything that you're hearing on that side as far as kind of a resolve? You did post something recently about them actually having a event too.
Yes. So they are having their town hall finally, after most of Vegas was left in the dark for a while. We finally got the event. It's this Tuesday night, from I think 5:30 to 8 in Vegas. And the interesting thing about the invite that they put in there is get ready for us to play in Vegas come February. So I don't know if anything's been locked up, but the more I've read into it, the more things I've seen on Twitter, it does sound like Cashman Stadium could be a done deal. Obviously, with us recording Sunday night, I'm suspecting that probably tomorrow morning, if not on Monday or Tuesday, there will be the official announcement. I would think it'd be very weird for Rod Woodson and the Vegas staff or whoever's going to be at the town hall that they don't have a stadium, because I think that could cause some chaos with season ticket holders that you invited to the town hall. There was some talk I saw earlier that a lot of people were saying that the Las Vegas ballpark where the Las Vegas Aviators play, their president came out in one of I think it was Las Vegas Biz article that said, hey, they're not going to play there. That president recommended Cashman. Saw some back and forth today that they actually may be at the Las Vegas ballpark after all. I don't know what may have changed. I've kind of gone back and forth with some people with that, but in the end, most Las Vegas people keep going back to Sam Boyd Stadium, which we all know is out of the question no matter what. So it definitely sounds like 100% that Allegiant is 100% off the table at this point, and those talks are nowhere to be found anymore.
So what's the deal with Cashman Stadium versus this ballpark? I mean, what's the difference between the two?
So I think
preference.
I would say my preference for TV style would be Las Vegas ballpark. It looks a lot nicer. It has a backdrop to it that says Las Vegas ballpark. I think the attendance is pretty close. It's between 10,000 and 12,000. Now, of course, at Cashman, if the XFL wanted to do what they did with Globe Life Park, aka Choctaw Stadium, and add the bleacher, they could get an additional 4,000 seats. That's up to obviously the Las Vegas, I think it's Lights FC that plays there, local soccer team. If they can kind of reach a deal with them, just like they did the Dallas team that plays at Choctaw still, that could be something that's an investment for both the league and for the soccer team to add 4,000 additional seats. But yeah, if I had a preference, I would go more with Las Vegas ballpark. It's nicer. I follow a few food groups or like Facebook/Instagram accounts of stadium food groups that talk about Las Vegas ballpark being one of the best stadiums, even with MLB, for food.
Interesting.
I'm like, hey, I want to go there.
There you go.
But if last case scenario, if it comes down to Cashman, I've seen the seating chart. I actually saw someone who created a I guess you could say a seating chart based off the soccer team and then insert an XFL field, kind of like the Ticketmaster presentations have been for the other teams or whatnot. And it fit. It looked nice. So I'm curious to see, but to me, it sounds like they have something locked down at this point just because of their wording in emails. And what was interesting is the season ticket holder email I got was different than the actual huddle email I got. The whole thing about the stadium was not in the second email, which I got days later. So I'm curious if they put that in there because fans are worried.
Yeah. So Mike is going to be covering the DC Defenders. Brandon is covering the Vegas Vipers. So Mike, give me your reaction to the new DC logos. I mean, if you're watching online, you see I've got the old DC logos behind me. So what was your take on the whole logos things coming out?
No, I'm happy with the logos. I think it's fine. I think you don't want to veer off too far from it because it's such a great brand. Brandon just mentioned the Las Vegas Stadium, and I just want to tie this in with DC, right? So I don't have a problem with a mid-sized stadium. I think ideally a mid-sized stadium or a smaller stadium is perfect for like a new upstart league. You prefer like something that's state of the art, like Audi Field. Because Audi Field is a beautiful location, beautiful stadium. It's the perfect size for these kind of leagues. You'd like a mid-sized stadium, something that's so you have potential to draw more. So like you have something in that 20 to 30,000 range, even 35 or something. So if maybe you can push it and, get in there, because it doesn't look bad if you've got 12, 15,000 in a 25,000 seat stadium, 30,000 seat stadium. So I don't have a problem with, a smaller stadium, and Las Vegas ballpark would certainly be great for that. As far as the DC logo goes, I noticed at the DC fan get together, they held up the shield flag. And I want to see that shield more prominently used. So hopefully the XFL uses it because I think it's cool gimmickry for fans. It's like an awesome thing. So I think it was a cool part of the Defenders back in 2020. So yeah, I'm happy with what DC there, and I'm anxious to see who they end up drafting. They have a very good personnel staff there with Von Hutchins running the show there and a good coaching staff. So it's going to be cool to see when these teams start to add players, they're starting to add the personality to their rosters. So, and I think you'll see more people start to follow the league too and take an interest in the league when you see specific names of players. So DC, we knew they weren't going to all of a sudden show up with a purple logo and be some kind of strange Wranglers team or something. We knew they were going to be the Defenders, so I mean status quo is a good thing. Some tweaks. I can't wait to see what the helmet and uniforms look like. We might see a little bit variation from the last time. Maybe they'll incorporate black more into this, more so than just the red and white look from 2 years ago. So yeah, I think the logos are fine. I think they'll grow on people like anything else. And we're getting most of the team names back with an exception of a tweak here and there. And, the DC Defenders are back, which is great.
Yeah. So one of the things that you notice that people were talking about the Sea Dragons versus the Dragons is that all the letter is part of the logo. And even somebody pointed, I was like, well, except for St. Louis. And they were like, no, if you flip it upside down, it's STL. So really the only one is the Guardians. So Brandon, what was your reaction when the Vipers kind of came out with their logo?
I was very happy because I wasn't too fond of the Vipers logo from Tampa Bay in 2020. It was very basic. And then even their alternate logo, the Viper head was too plain. I have seen some mock-ups that people did of the current color scheme of that logo, and it actually kind of looked kind of cool, but it just that branding needed to go away. I felt that you couldn't just move the Vipers to Las Vegas and keep the color scheme, keep that type of stuff. So the black and white, I wish they had to put some gold in it just to give a throwback to the Las Vegas Outlaws. But overall, the logo is great. It's great on a t-shirt. And I'm actually glad that they dropped Las Vegas and just calling them Vegas Vipers. It sounds more like aggressive compared to Las Vegas Vipers, like not doing what everyone else is doing. So that's a little bit of a difference, but I like the colors and logo. And I mean, it's the same thing, like you're saying with the V, and most all these logos have the logo looks like the actual town name or whatnot. So I'm thrilled with it. I just am curious to see what these jerseys and uniforms look like, because Rod Woodson claims they're good. I believe to tend he probably is correct on that one.
So Mike, speaking of all these like uniforms and stuff like that, do you have a sense of what kind of timeline we have? I mean, there's still rules, there's still schedule, there's still uniforms. Any kind of idea of this timeline and with the XFL?
They could be following the model of 3 years ago, which the XFL, obviously they had their draft, but they didn't debut the uniforms until they showed the players at a special event showing up in the uniforms. And that's what we had 3 years ago. So I think, it should be coming up, within a month or so. I would assume, within the next few weeks, perhaps, we should see whoever the Defenders and Vipers players are, the quarterback, etc., in the full, and they'll again, like they did last time with the uniforms, they'll again do tie-ins with ESPN to introduce the uniforms. So it gives the league, even though, excuse me, even though the NFL is ongoing and it's hard to get attention, and you got the CFL with the Grey Cup, Argos.
Very excited.
Great next week. Even though all that stuff is going on, it's hard to get attention. It's good that the XFL still has these big announcements, and where we're getting very close now to the start of the season. As crazy as it is, Thanksgiving's right upon us. The new year will be here before you know it. So you got the team schedules, you got the TV schedules. Hopefully soon we'll get the Vegas stadium, get that squared away, so they can start, selling tickets for that. And then the uniforms, the league rules, as you mentioned. So we'll, there's still some big announcements for the league to make. And so yeah, I would think it would make sense the next few weeks for them to do the uniforms, perhaps at, some sort of a get together event or whatever, unveiling, so to speak. And so that's another, I guess, tentpole event for the league to have, because that's going to be a big deal. You can make or break. The Vipers looks like potentially, like I wrote about this at xflnewshub.com, they have potential to have the best overall look, but I got to see the uniforms first. And so I think the Brahmas too. I saw some mock-ups today briefly, dealing with girlfriends and family business and all that, but I saw some really cool mock-ups of the San Antonio Brahmas. And so it was like, whoa, those helmets, the white helmets, the black helmets, that looks, I mean, I don't know how the league's going to end up doing it, whether or not they'll have a Steelers like look for Heinz Ward, but you don't want to have a knockoff, but yeah, but I think that's the big part. That's the incomplete thing. When I rank the logos and the team names, I constantly mention that, until we see the uniforms and all that, that's really where you can kind of complete the whole look. And that's going to be a big deal. I mean, these leagues, they usually get trashed, during the draft, we'll see people do the Snoop GIF with him saying who every time a player is picked. And so these leagues will get made fun of. A lot of times I'll see somebody in college football debut a new uniform, and you'll see comments like, oh, it looks like the XFL. So hopefully, when these uniforms come out, that because I like the XFL uniforms from 2 years ago, and I love the Battlehawks helmet and all that with the wings. So hopefully these uniforms are badass, and maybe the Rock's tie-ins with Under Armour and stuff plays into it. We see already Zoa is the official energy drink of the league. So maybe Under Armour can be the outfitter for the league. We'll see. But it's going to be a big deal. The look of the league, it ultimately comes down to the quality of football you present, and the broadcast, which I have no doubt on ESPN, ABC, FX are going to be great. But it'd be nice if the uniforms are very cool looking, and if people who are watching the games are attracted to the look of it, and they don't think it's like some rinky-dink league with some crazy looking uniforms, with all due respect to the bored apes of the FCF.
Yeah. So Brandon, we always have our speculative chats going on our group me. I think fans would pay money to be part of those chats going on. We all thought that there was going to be this big rollout for these team names and logos, and in fact, it was a press release. Basically, what was your reaction to that? I'll get both of you guys' reaction. Brandon, we'll start with you.
All right, I was kind of disappointed. I know we were we were talking back in, I think, May when I first joined everything, of June 1st was supposed to be original date. It didn't happen, and then we got the town hall in Arlington at the end of July. Still nothing there. We at least got the cities and stuff, and then here we go with the hurricane. I still think that may have been the original time frame, but I also wonder if there were some tweaks done in between there as well. I was okay with it. I thought it would have been really cool if they actually gave the huddle members and season ticket holder members the opportunity to see everything up front, like revealed it in person. Compared to a press release. But obviously it's 2022 going on to 2023. The internet is, all you have to do is take a picture and it's trending. So I get the press conference. I do wish there would have been a little more of 2019/2020 season with those hype videos. Thought they were kind of like, ugh. But too much stock footage from Showcase is my opinion. But I wasn't too... It rolled out. It was nice, and I think it kind of was a turning event for the league, in my opinion, because a lot of negative comments just up and disappeared. People were actually talking about the team logos, and as much as people didn't like the Brahmas name at first, a lot of people were diving into that team once they saw the logo and color scheme and stuff. So I'm okay with it.
Mike, what was your reaction? You were the one that was like, oh, there's no way that would just be a press release.
Yeah, they did the ESPN video with Laura Rutledge. Obviously, that was all over ESPN Sports Center and did all that. They didn't make a big deal of it. I don't want to say, like a year ago, I would have said maybe it's COVID related not to do in-person stuff, but they didn't make a big press conference at each individual city and all that. So they could have done more. I don't want to say I was underwhelmed. I did expect a little more, They were quick with it. They teased it on Sunday, the day before Halloween. And then they did a little bit similar to 2019 where you show bits and pieces of the logo and have people guessing. And then the very next day they revealed it. So could they have done more, some type of show, maybe a little bit more elaborate on the videos, maybe updating them a little bit, not using so much stock footage, I suppose. But I think people are excited that they finally arrived. They're like kind of relieved. We knew they were coming. The league's not going to get on the field naked with no uniforms. They're not going to have no names. Not going to have no players. All these things were eventually coming. It just came later than people expected. So yeah, I wouldn't say I was whelmed. I guess I wasn't overwhelmed or underwhelmed. So and these things are important for the league. Like right now, to be honest with you, and Brandon talks about Vegas. I've been in touch with people in Vegas and people who are boots on the ground that work in the sport, have written XFL articles, few and far between, but a few different people, and they're not really, that market's not really interested yet in the XFL. I had one writer in Las Vegas tell me, right now we're not interested unless we can talk to The Rock.
Interesting.
So basically, it's going to take time to build up interest and awareness. That's big with these leagues, is to build up awareness in your particular markets. So players will help, and these announcements will help. Little by little, you build up steam. So they needed these team names, and they need all these different tentpole announcements to build up momentum and anticipation. I think they can present a very good product in Vegas. They have a very cool looking team. Rod Woodson is awesome. But some of these markets might take a little bit of work to win them over, and then you have to question the choice. Now, I like Vegas. I mean, obviously, I'm an original XFL guy. I covered the league back then, so I like the Vegas market, and I love the Outlaws back in the day. But it's a different time now than it was then, and they're just starting to come around. Vegas is hot, but Raiders haven't been so hot this year. Yeah. But yeah, they're just starting to come around. So I don't know if that's the type of market that's accepting of what would be considered a secondary pro football league. I think you need these announcements and you need to build up anticipation and to start promoting. That's the one thing. Say what you want, and a lot of people have negative feelings. I get it towards Vince McMahon, but anybody I talked to in XFL 2020 always raved about his direction, his vision, and his promotion. And so you can't, you can have hatred for the guy if you want, but he's got because of his hard work, he's got a global enterprise that has billion-dollar deals with Fox and with NBC, and they're international powerhouse and have been the whole time. And when the XFL was around, with him, and if you talk to anybody in the league who's in a prominent position with them, there was a lot more promotion, and you knew the XFL was coming. And so that's what really needs to pick up with this league. With a lot of what we don't take into account, because everybody talks about The Rock and Danny and Redbird is a monster in their space. The Rock is a monster in his space. Danny Garcia is a monster in his space. But these people have never run a league before. So they've never run a pro sports league before. It's a different animal doing this. And there's going to be some hiccups and all that along the way. You got to expect it, because even though this is a reboot, and there's some XFL 2020 people, this is really a new start, a new vision, and that they're still hiring people as we go along, still working on the Vegas Stadium. I've followed these leagues my whole life. New leagues always have hiccups. It's why Fox with the USFL decided to simplify things, just do a bare bones league. Everybody plays in one location. That's it. So this is very easy. We don't even have to hire that many people. We don't have to hire presidents. We don't have to hire a bunch of social media people. Let's just go play one place. That makes it so much easier, right? And so the XFL is trying to do big league. So they're trying to go into cities. They're trying to do all that. So you're going to have mistakes and hiccups and all that. So I find this process very fascinating. I think the league needs to do a better job of promoting in the next few months. It's good, as you mentioned, people will see on XFL News. They've seen it already because this will air tomorrow. But we're seeing some ESPN shows now that are dedicated to the XFL with the draft and all that. So that's awesome. More of that, and little by little, word of mouth, because they got the hardcores and the hardcore football fans that love these types of leagues. But they need to, pull in some of the mainstream football audience to get that sample casual audience that doesn't, that isn't receptive to these types of leagues. And you're going to need to do that in markets like Vegas.
Yeah. And so big of the part of the big deal with promoting the league, of course, is the players. So Brandon, who are some guys out there that you're like, hey, I would love to see them on a Viper or even just in the XFL?
Well, I feel definitely for sure some of those names from 2020 that being originally a Dallas Renegades season ticket holder, was Jeff Badette, Cameron Artis-Payne. I know, Mike, you had talked about when we were going through Jordan Palmer's thing about potentially Jalen McCladen, I believe is how you pronounce his name, being their quarterback. Yeah, being their quarterback.
One of their quarterbacks. He was with the Wildcats. Joey Clinkscales had him with LA back in XFL 2020. McClendon is going to be one of the, now whether or not he's drafted or one of the two assigned. So right now the word is that we'll see. By the time this airs, maybe we'll know more. But everyone I've talked to in the XFL recently, and recent sourcing has told me that there's going to be 2 quarterbacks assigned per team. So whether or not Jalen McClendon is one of those two, it's very possible. He's definitely linked to that team for sure. So I would not shock me if he's one of the two. Perhaps he's drafted by Vegas in the open phase. That's another area that we can talk about, but that's quarterbacks can be selected in the open phase. So, but yeah, there are players like that. You're mentioning Brandon from XFL 2020 that will be a part of the league.
So are we going to get, so is the idea that we're going to get on the quarterback selection showcase, whatever it is on Tuesday, 2 quarterbacks per team?
That's what I'm hearing. Now, maybe that changes, but by the time this airs, maybe that, but the recent sourcing that I've gotten from people within the league is that they've been told that it's going to be 2. The idea is 2 quarterbacks per team. Now, the XFL through ESPN, when ESPN had their press release for the team names and logos, they accidentally released that information. And I don't know if you guys remember that or not, but it was in the article itself that there would be 16 quarterbacks, 2 announced per team assigned with the exact date that we're getting. So could that change at the last minute? I suppose. But from at this very second, as we're recording this, that's what I'm hearing, 2 per team. So, and I wrote an article obviously on the site, tentatively assigned.
Mm-hmm.
The keyword there is tentative, but we were Jawan Pass in San Antonio, Jalen McClendon, Las Vegas, Stephen Montez, I heard in Seattle. I'm hearing conflicting things about Cole McDonald in Seattle, the Hawaii quarterback who was drafted by the Tennessee Titans.
Mm-hmm.
He could either be in Houston or Seattle. Makes a little bit of sense in Seattle with June Jones, but we'll see. That could be an interesting battle there if it's Montez and Cole McDonald there. So those are, you mentioned players that I'm interested in. So like a lot of people don't know a lot of these players. I made a joke earlier about people using the Snoop GIF, but Jarrett Stearns is an interesting guy. We haven't seen his name. He led the entire nation last year in receiving. He was cut by the Bucks in training camp. People might be familiar with Bailey Zappi. Now with New England Patriots, he was his number one target there, Western Kentucky. I really like Abram Smith from Baylor. He was, I believe, 4th or 5th in the nation in rushing. He's got a lot of workouts, but he just hasn't latched on the team. I'm kind of surprised. Power back has big playability. These are maybe not household names, but if you're a college football person, you know who they are. I think for the league is going to need. I like a lot of these young quarterbacks. Carson Strong. We'll see about Cole Kelly. Carson Strong could be a very good player. Akil Glass in Vegas, likely. We'll see if he agrees with the league or not. But because Dwayne Taylor is the offensive coordinator, once he finishes up at Alabama A&M, makes sense for Akil Glass to rejoin his former OC in Vegas. We'll see.
Mm-hmm.
The names that I'm interested in, I think the league needs some big name guys. So a couple at least. And they might still be waiting on these players, but it would be awesome to see a Josh Rosen in the league. You want to talk about somebody who would get mainstream football people interested, whether you think he's good or not, whether you think he flopped in the NFL or not. Josh Rosen would get a lot of attention. He'd be one of the names they'd be mentioning front and center on ESPN as playing in the XFL. There have been talks there. Whether or not he'll come on board, we'll see. At least he might not be until a January guy. I'd love to see Chris Streveler. I think Chris Streveler, he's currently on the Jets practice squad. I don't know what's going to happen to him when the season ends. He is such a lovable and marketable guy. He's like a muscle-bound superhero on the field. He's so much fun to watch, and he was lights out during the preseason.
Mm-hmm.
The New York Jets fan base, I write about the New York Jets at thejetpress.com. The New York Jets fan base instantly fell in love with him. He's the kind of guy you can market. I know Anthony Beck covered the New York Jets during the preseason, was fully aware of Streveler's magic antics in the preseason with his game-winning drives and all that. So I'm sure he would love to add him. But that would be more of a January thing. But I think it would be great for the league if they had a few, because some people like me might know the Cole Kellys and the Carson Strongs and the Akil Glasses and be familiar with how good of prospects these players were and in college and how they've been overlooked. And it's great to see them get an opportunity. They're kings. But it would be nice if a Brett Hundley, a Deshaun Kaiser, Josh Rosen, if some of these names, we'll see Garrett Gilbert maybe in January.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody, I think Rosen is the kind of guy you can, I'm not saying he may not end up being great, but you never know. But I think he's the kind of guy that really needs to resurrect his career. And I think he has name value and would get interest, and people who are not even interested in the XFL will watch if Rosen is playing, at least the first game.
Yeah. Now for this draft though, but it seems like your USFL players, your CFL players, this might not even be the big draft. Because of these big names might be coming later on.
Yeah, that's possible. Anybody who was a USFL player that signed with an NFL team and was released and is out there in the market is available to potentially be drafted, right? So there's them. And then we've got the players I mentioned earlier in this conversation, the AA players, the Alumni Academy players who are graduates are going to be part of the draft pool. The XFL 2020 guys are going to be part of the draft pool. And all the players, the 1,100 players that are from the last 3 draft classes. They're not drafting 1,700 players. That's going to be the tough part about this draft is you're going to see roughly, I think the number they mentioned was 450 players. Teams can pick up to 60 players if they want to, but they can bow out at any moment. The first day of the draft is 44. Let's assume the signed quarterbacks is 2. That's 46. They take 3 specialists on day number 2. And so that would get you to 49. And then they might add some other players there in the open phase. But they still got to get to 66. So Doug Whaley mentioned that they're expecting anywhere 75 or more players in that January period. So we'll see. Those are practice squad guys, USFL guys whose contract expire. But yes, CFL guys. Well, there are some. I think Josh Huff, Cole McDonald obviously was a CFL guy. I've heard rumblings about DJ Foster, who opted out of the CFL. But obviously, Canadian Football League players are under contract, and free agency for the CFL doesn't start until February. So I don't know how many of those players, at least in year one, are going to be a part of the XFL. It's more the players that I just mentioned.
So basically, for this draft, we're not going to get any Colin Kaepernicks, Terrell Owens. I will still go to bat. If you followed us years ago, there's a whole controversy about Terrell Owens. His name was on a list I saw, and I posted it, and then they took it off.
And then another Owens showed up, Thomas Owens. So there were two TOs, both receivers. But Colin Kaepernick would be earth-shattering if that ever happened. I haven't heard anything about his name in there. He only has designs of playing in the NFL. So his asking price is probably very high, like it was for the last two spring league. So I don't see him in there. But you mentioned veterans. There could be a few. I mean, it would be fun to see a T.O. or Ocho Cinco or somebody like that. Why not? But but we did see Charles James, who played in the XFL and the AAF. He mentioned that him and Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie, who I guess was coming out of retirement, he's a former first-round cornerback. He mentioned on social media, whether he was joking or not, that he's going to be playing in the XFL. But would I be shocked? Would I be shocked if a couple of veterans show up in the league? Sure. I think they're going to skew more younger, but it wouldn't hurt to have a couple of named guys sprinkled in here and there.
Yeah, I was throwing this one out last week to Dave Naylor, who was on the program. What about Bo Levi Mitchell returning to the States, playing in Texas to wrap up his career in the United States?
I don't know if that happens. Right. I don't know if that happens with Bo now. It's a fun thing to think about. There was a player, and I do know, and I think I mentioned this with Emery Hunt on his show. There was a player that in the CFL, Vernon Adams, who I think would be a lock for any team that has June Jones on it. And I know that during the draft process that, Vernon Adams is a shorter player, so he was kind of overlooked in the draft process. And I think June Jones would absolutely love to have him on the team. So could we see that in the future where maybe a quarterback of that ilk that has somewhat of a name in Canada? Bo Levi would be fascinating. I think he's going to try his hand to try to redeem himself next year in the CFL. We'll see if it's Saskatchewan or someone else. But I think Bo's going to hang around Canada for 1 more year because I think he's like a man on a mission to prove that he isn't, as the kids say these days, washed.
Yeah. So Brandon, you got some shocking picks that might happen for this draft?
I'm wondering too, and I don't know, not 100% current on NFL rosters, but I'm wondering if Josh Gordon shows up anywhere.
Oh, that's true.
I think that I can't find who it was, but there was a quarterback for the Glacier Boys in season 1. It's not DeAndre. One of the other guys that
Jackson Erdman, maybe you're thinking of, or not?
Maybe.
Erdman just, believe it or not, he went to the European League of Football. He's won 2 championships in a row, and he just retired.
Oh, okay.
He just retired. I know he played in FCF. He was pretty good in that too. So, but I don't know if that's who you're thinking.
Maybe I'll have to come back to it, but I could see, like you said, someone like T.O. randomly showing up. I'm gonna hope that Antonio Brown stays away, even though he claims he has a XFL team, which is the weirdest thing I've ever seen out of him. But okay, I had predicted.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Mike.
But the problem,
you're good.
Problem with some of the veterans is they're so used to a certain specific salary. I'm not saying T.O. won't do it or Chad Ochocinco won't do it. Like for me, as you were talking, you sparked an idea. Like I'd love to see somebody like John Ross in the XFL, the fastest guy ever to run the 40 in the NFL Combine. First round pick of the Bengals, hasn't worked out in the NFL. He's worked out for recent NFL teams, so maybe he gets another shot somewhere. But I'd love to see him in the XFL. That'd be like guys like him though that have been in the league for 3-4 years. I don't know how close he is to getting his pension and all that. You have to be in the NFL for a certain amount of time. They're accustomed to making six figures, even if it's on the lower end. So convincing those type of players that are in that 26, 27-year-old range to come back. But that's somebody like I'm a big fan on the redemption stories, the Josh Rosen types, the former first round pick that just for whatever reason injuries otherwise didn't work out. So yeah, Brandon just made me think of John Ross when he was mentioning some of those players there. Yeah, so I was thinking of, just it would be nice. I wouldn't. A couple of those stories helps, and then those types of players choosing the XFL. Sure, there'll be people that mock them or make fun of them. Like, look what happened to him. He was a first round pick and now he's in the XFL. But it shows how much they love the game if they're still want to still play pro ball, and you never know. Maybe somebody just explodes. Maybe John Ross comes in the league and explodes and goes nuts, and that's his way back in. Because right now he got to the point where teams are thinking about playing him at defensive back rather than wide receiver. Wow. So this is a guy who's a first round wide receiver. You'd think that would be your Jamar Chase, your Justin Jefferson, your whomever. Unfortunately, it didn't work out that way.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, I appreciate this. It's going to be a crazy week, and I'm just thankful for the fact that we can actually talk about players finally. After 2 years of doing this stuff and waiting, we finally, this is going to be a huge week this week. Everybody stay tuned, and also follow these guys on social. We'll start with you, Brandon. Give them all your social media stuff so they can follow you.
Yeah, I'm at Branderson 1987 on Instagram and Twitter. But yeah, follow me. I will share anything that comes up with Vegas or any real XFL content here on XFL News Hub or whatnot. So give me a shout out, follow, and hey, I'm here.
All right. And Mike, what about where can people find you?
I'm right for XFLNewsHub.com, CFLNewsHub.com, thejetpress.com. And you can follow me at by Mike Mitchell, BYMIKEMITCHELL. And this week's going to be crazy. So get ready for DC Defenders, 44 rounds of players written up. I did this back in 2019. So I'll be breaking down I did this for the generals in the USFL, breaking down, these new leagues when they have these 50, 60, 70 player drafts. My job to write everything about each specific pick. So you're going to get 44 rounds. So if you have some time on your hands and you want to know a little bit more about who's playing on the Defenders this year, check me out at XFL News Hub during the week. It's going to be fun. I'm familiar with a lot of these players, and so it's fun to share my knowledge, and I'm excited about the guys who are going to get a shot.
All right. Well, the 3-point era is right at our grasp, guys. I appreciate it so much. Thanks for being on.
Thank you
for having us.
What's up, XFL Army? If you're a fan of the XFL News Hub and you have a telephone, which I know all of you do because you're sitting there playing on your phones all the time, then why not download the XFL News Hub app? That's right, it's on iTunes. It's on Android. We have an Android version and an iPhone version of the XFL News Hub app. So what do you get? You get the latest news from XFL News Hub, the premier source of XFL news in the universe. Plus, you get push notifications when we have breaking news. You will be the first to know. You can leave a comment on some of the news right from your phone. Plus, you get this podcast on your phone as well. Remember, you can leave us reviews on the Google Play Store or iTunes. It links to other social media, our other social media accounts, and so much more. Be in the know. I know you're on your phones. People are on their phones all the time. They never get off their phones. So why not just download the XFL News Hub app on your Android or iPhone today? All you need to do is go to the Google Play Store or iTunes and just type in XFL News Hub. That's XFL News Hub. Download our app on your phone today. All right, my friends, we are back. What do you think of that roundtable? We'll have more discussions. I mean, Mike Mitchell dropping some bombs. There's going to be so much stuff leaked throughout this whole process. Stay tuned to XFL News Hub for all that good, fun stuff. I appreciate Mike and I appreciate Brandon for being on the program. It's going to be a crazy week, my friends. Thanks so much for checking in. Remember, if you want to be part of the crazy that is this week, be part of the show, email podcast at XFL News Hub with your thoughts, record an MP3 or video on your phone. We'll play it on this week's show. We will play all this stuff, the social media. We'll get to that stuff on the live shows this week. 888-430-7692, extension 3. And always leave us a review on Apple Podcast. We will read it on the show. Appreciate you there. So remember, Reddit, Alt Football, if you're a fan, sign up for that. News Hub Fantasy, sign up for that. Start building your league. Invite your friends to do the draft. It's 6-team league, and we'll have more information on that as we get closer to drafting time, which will be in January. We have to wait for the supplemental draft to happen before we can get you guys in there to start drafting your teams. But at least you can create it and get involved with that. And also, smash the like button. Let's get this to 80 likes as we build towards the draft. It's going to be a huge week. A reminder of what's going on this week. This is all, as long as my voice doesn't disappear. Tuesday, live show, 8 p.m. Eastern. Wednesday, then we've got the TV show at 8. Then Wednesday, all day draft coverage. Huge with a recap show, most likely at 8. We'll see with that. My wife knows that I won't be around, and I'll be drinking Zoa all the time. Then we've got a recap show on Thursday to pull everything together. XFL News Hub reporters, special guests, and so much more. You're not going to want to miss this, so make sure you like to this video and subscribe to the channel. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell so you are alerted. We're the premier source of XFL news. There's no question about it. We're the undisputed number one. I could show you data everywhere across the board, social media platforms, YouTube, traffic data, all of it. The number one source here is XFL. We've got the top-notch reporters. We've got reporters for every single team. We've even got extra reporters to fill in the blanks with stuff. We've got so much stuff here on XFL News Hub. We're about to unleash it on the world. We have been waiting in the wings for a long time. Lots of answered prayers, and now we finally have the league back. It is so freaking rare in this day and age where a company goes bankrupt to actually come back, and 2 years later, now we're back with all the CFL talk, and maybe they were having a hub, and maybe they wasn't going to do it. Maybe the Redbird and all those people were thinking maybe we won't do it. We're finally here. We've got a draft. It's going to be hyped up big time on ESPN. And we're just going to have a fun week, my friends. And all of you that's been listening for the last year, for the last 2 years, man, this week is for you. This is for the OGs. I want to hear from you. So email me, podcast at XFL News Hub. What are you thinking? I mean, we still have rules like we talked about. We still have uniforms. We still have schedule. All sorts of stuff coming in hot. The league is still building out its employees. They're still looking for people. I mean, so they're taking a different approach. It's a different approach from the 2.0 era. And it's just going to be a lot of fun. So hang out and be along for the ride. That's all I can tell you, my friends. All right, that's it for me, folks. As always, mahalo out there to all my friends. And God bless. And we will see you all, not later. We're going to see you all tomorrow. And then the next day. And then the next day. And the next day. And then I'm done. Then I'm going to take a break. All right. Peace. God bless. And I'll see you all tomorrow.